And we're back with more Cowboy Up with Tex. That's right here at Hot News Talk Radio. You can actually watch this show with the Hot News Cam, only on Hot News Talk Radio. You can see what we film and what we say on Hot News Talk Radio on YouTube. You can even get Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter, where you can see updates, such as today's shooting over in Eastlake Courts. Not to mention weather updates for bad weather. Of course, right now the weather is not all that bad. You know, it's probably about like 65 degrees right now, and it's going to get down into the 40s tonight, but they say it's going to get to be a little bit better day tomorrow. Well, we've been talking a little bit on the show about government overreach and how the government wants to have their little fingers in absolutely everything we do. Now, don't you remember back years ago, with the founding fathers and all the way up to, probably about 15, maybe 20 years ago, this used to be America, the land of the free. We ain't so free these days, folks, and it's because of government overreach. The government just keeps on taking away choices from us. The government has to regulate this, regulate that. Well, to regulate means they're not allowing us the freedom to choose something. That means that what they're doing is they're taking our freedom away from us and giving it to somebody else so that they can make the choices for us. And that's an important distinction. You know, we're supposed to have the ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, that's important to remember right there, the pursuit of happiness. Nowhere are we guaranteed happiness. We're guaranteed the right to pursue happiness, but if we make bad decisions and screw it up, that's on us, not on the government. But the problem is this whole thing has been turned topsy-turvy so that now the government has decided that they're going to make the choices for us. And then when we're not happy, we just got to live with it, whether it's our fault or not. You know, and this is kind of one of the ways that this is manifesting itself is because, you know, they're wanting to start regulating drones, you know, these little remote control helicopter-like things. You know, we've had remote control airplanes. Some of them are huge. I mean, you go out there to some of these little air parks. They've got just huge planes. I mean, 10-foot wing spreads. These things look like something they'd be using over in Iraq and Iran, you know, for the drones. But they're remote control airplanes, and they've had these things around for a long time. They've been shooting off these little rockets for, you know, 50 plus years. You know, the company name is Estes, you know, and they'd have these little kits where boys, especially like in Boy Scouts and whatnot, they'd make these little rockets and they'd put them on their little stand and they'd shoot them up into the air. And they might go up in the air, you know, 1,000 feet or more. In fact, every year out in, I think it's Arizona, they have this rocket competition where they're building rockets that can go up to, you know, 10, 20,000 feet. You know, now I agree that there needs to be some sort of regulation on things when it's getting up that high, but really these little remote control helicopters and quadcopters and hexacopters, you know, depending upon how many engines they've got, they want to call it hexacopter, quadcopter, you know, octocopter, you know, I mean, whatever it is. I saw one the other day that had probably about like 40 engines on the thing. It was picking a guy up. Now, when it starts picking people up, I don't think you can call it a drone anymore. But anyway, but the thing of it is the vast majority of these are toys. Some of these have legitimate uses, like for real estate companies and for news reporting companies, where they want to get up and go, you go to LA, something happens, you'll see 4 or 5 full-scale helicopters flying around. Now, one of them suckers comes down, people are going to die. One of these little bitty, quadcopter things, like one of the Phantoms, as they call them, one of those crashes, somebody might get hurt, but I don't think anybody's going to die from one of those. And they're like, well, we've been seeing these things around airports. Well, first off, airports are already no-fly zones, so if somebody's stupid enough to have anything in that area, they need to be arrested. But because one person is stupid, that doesn't mean that you punish the literally hundreds of thousands of innocent people out there. They're saying, well, we're afraid one of these things might hit an airplane. Well, okay, right now we already have problems with birds hitting airplanes and causing wrecks now. But there's a minor difference, because you get like a 20-pound goose that hits one of these planes. The goose doesn't break into a jillion pieces. It pretty much continues on in one piece. Yeah, the goose is dead, but, it's still pretty much in one piece. Like I think it was Jeff Foxworthy one time was talking about how that they had a class thing where they were shooting chickens, dead frozen chickens, at the windshield of airplanes. And he says, if I'd known there was a job like that, he would have, his life might have been way different. But when you have these little things, you see them, they hit the ground too hard, they break into little itty bitty pieces. They're built that way. If one of these was to hit a plane, you would just shatter into a gajillion pieces and be gone. In which case, if they shatter into a jillion pieces, how are you going to prove who they belong to, even if they are registered? I mean, first off, you've got these planes, they've got their tail numbers on them, so that, if somebody's flying erratic or something like that, you can maybe use a pair of binoculars or something like that and read the tail number and report them to the FAA. Well, some of these things, you put a number on them, they're going to be so small, you can't see them once they're, more than 20, 30 feet away, much less 400 or 500 feet. You're not going to know who they are. And if they get destroyed, it's going to be impossible to figure out who they belong to. And there again, like guns, if somebody's going to be flying them illegal, they're not going to register it in the first place, just like guns. If they're doing something illegal, they're not going to put the numbers on there in the first place. The only people this is going to affect are the people that are not going to be doing the stupid stuff in the first place, just like guns. Meanwhile, and here's the one thing that I have yet to hear anybody talking about in the media, about these drone registrations. At first, it was going to be the FAA. Now they're saying it might be the Department of Transportation. But you know what? Whoever it is, they say that there's going to be probably 1 million of those things flying around by the end of the year with Christmas and all. 1 million of them. You think they're going to have one guy in a little back room with his little stamp going, here's another one, here's another one, stamping all of those registrations. Here's another one, another registration. You know that they're going to have to hire hundreds of new government employees just to do the registration. Now, once they do the registration, that means that they got to start having some of their investigators to go out, because what's the use of having them registered if you can't go out and investigate? So now they're going to have some investigators to go around and harass people who aren't doing anything wrong. And if they're going to have somebody out there investigating, well, we know they're going to have guns, because you can't have a government inspector or a government investigator and not have him armed, because, man, they arm absolutely everybody in the government these days. I mean, even the EPA, they're going out there to see if somebody's got a dried up pond on the property. Well, they got to go out there, in a full-scale SWAT team. So now you're going to have even more people working for the government with guns, eating up tax money that we don't have anymore, folks. There just ain't no more. What they need to do is just put simple rules on there. Okay, This type of craft can't go higher than that. That type of craft can't go higher than that. And if they cause a problem, then we'll arrest you for being a public nuisance or something like that. We don't got to get a whole new code book full of things. You know, we don't have to have a whole new division, which is what's going to happen. We're not going to have a whole new division just to investigate and register these things. And the thing of it is at some point, the government gets to tell us who can and who can't have them. And that's where the freedom part comes in. That's where the government overreach problem is because the government is once again being able to tell us who they will allow and who they won't allow to do something. And that's what it boils down to. America, the land of the free. Oh, you know, because like I said, you know, there's so many similarities with guns on these things. But so far, there hadn't been a single person that has died because of one of these things being flown in the air. You know, I mean, it's just like the gun control laws. You've got 50 different states that have 50 different sets of rules, and they've been changed time and time again in all 50 states. So there are huge amounts of statistical evidence on what these laws do, when they work, when they don't work, when they prevent murders, when they don't prevent murders. I mean, statistics on murder are among the most widely available statistics there are. And they're also among some of the most accurate because, well, after all, nobody ignores a dead body. If it's laying in the street, somebody's going to investigate it. Oh, man. But anyway, the problem is that why is gun control still such a heated issue? Well, that's because most of these gun control idiots don't look at the facts, the hard facts. I mean, one of the many facts is that gun sales have been going up by the millions in the late 20th century of America. At the same time, the murder rate has been going down. And this is besides the point that, and this is one thing you hardly ever hear being mentioned, not only have the gun sales been going up, but the number of citizens in the country has been going up as well. Therefore, that means that the percentage of murders based on, you know, like 100,000 people has been going down twice as fast. Fewer people are being murdered overall, and as a percentage of the population, it's been going down even more. How much more? Well, let's look at this. In 2013, fewer people were murdered with a firearm than died as a result of a DUI. In 2013, 10,076 people were killed in alcohol-impaired driving crashes. That's 1/3, 31% of all traffic-related deaths in the United States were a result of alcohol. Of the 1,149 traffic deaths among children from 0 to 14 years old, 200, 17%, were involved in an alcohol-impaired driver. In contrast, only 8,500 people died as a result of a firearm-related homicide. And that's all types of firearms, whether it was a Derringer, whether it was a machine gun. 8,500 people died. That is 2,000 people less than were killed by DUIs. But yet we have to register every gun out there. We have to, you know, restrict people from doing this, restrict people from doing that. You can't carry here. You can't carry there. You know, over in Europe, in a lot of the countries in Europe, if you're convicted of a DUI, not even having a wreck, if you had a DUI, you can lose your license for life. You are never allowed behind the wheel of a car again for one DUI. And the people over here want to cry and complain, you know, when they get a ticket for a DUI. And if you have your license rescinded in Europe and you get caught driving a car, again, not even having a wreck, if you just get caught driving a car with no license because your original license was suspended, you go to prison for a long time. They don't mess around in Europe. And of course, what's everybody always talking about? All of the French and the Italians, everybody's, they're always seen drinking wine here and drinking wine there, but they don't drive drunk. But over here in America, where more people die from DUIs than from gunshots, do we jump up and down on the DUIs? Not like we do with the guns. And the thing of it is when you're punishing the gun owners, the vast majority of people that you're punishing haven't done anything wrong. With the DUIs, you're only punishing those that did do something wrong. That's what they need to do. They need to harshen up the sentences on DUIs enormously, but that doesn't fit the agenda. Let's look at something else. Cigarette smoking is responsible for more than 480,000 deaths per year in the United States. And that includes nearly 42,000 deaths from secondhand smoke exposure. 1 in 5 deaths, or 1,300 deaths every day, as a result of smoking. Now, do they ban smoking? I mean, the FDA, they could step in and say that that's a carcinogenic product, and they could totally ban cigarettes. But they don't do that. Instead, they just harass the crap out of everybody that does smoke. So, that means that for every homicide, listen, there was a homicide for every 37,389 people. 1 in every 37,000. We'll just say 37,000. That means that 0.0027% of the population died from a firearm-related homicide in 2013. And we got to grab the guns, regardless of what the Constitution says. Regardless of who's innocent and who's not innocent. Regardless of who's actually broken the law and who has not broken the law, we got to grab all guns. Meanwhile, things that are causing problems go by the wayside. Well, I will say this, at least here in Chattanooga, they're trying to do a little something about the smoking. Yep. Jim Coppinger and several of the mayors like Andy Burke and a few others will ask our area's legislative delegation to give local towns the authority to ban smoking in parks and open spaces. Well, they're already saying you can't smoke indoors. Now they're saying you can't smoke outdoors. But we're not banning smoking. Really. There again. Now, I don't smoke. And I don't allow smoking in my house. And I don't like being around people that smoke. I don't go to nightclubs and whatnot where there's a heavy haze of smoking. But you know what? That's personal choice. Which is my right as an American to have a personal choice. If I want to go to a restaurant that doesn't allow smoking, that's my choice. And it's the restaurant's choice of whether they allow smoking or not. The ones that don't, they get my money. And hopefully they stay in business. At the same time, if there's a restaurant that does a really, really good job of sucking all the smoke out, and maybe they have a smoking section as opposed to a non-smoking section, I might spend my money there. But chances are I'm not going to go into a club, a business, a restaurant, or anything that allows smoking. I'm just not going to do it. But you know what? That's that business's choice. If they want to cater to just smokers, that's their right as Americans. I mean, you have these companies that are just, all they do is sell cigarettes and cigars. They have these little cigar bars, they call them. You know what? That's their choice. And my choice is I don't have to go in there, but the government needs to stay out of it. Now, if you've got some area like a courtroom or some sort of building like that, or like an airplane, I can understand a little bit the government stepping in and saying, for the general protection of everybody, we don't need to allow smoking in there. But when you start thinking about big, huge areas like Coolidge Park, the Tennessee River Park, Warner Park, well, that's when maybe what you do is you have a smoking section and a non-smoking section. Because, folks, the thing you got to keep in mind is that 17.6% of Hamilton County residents smoke. That's almost 1/5 of the county smokes. And as long as it is legal, the government needs to stay out of it. They need to, you know, they're what they're doing is they're trying to have their cake and eat it too, because what they're doing is they're putting these signs up that say, "Thank you for not smoking," because legally they can't put a sign up that says no smoking. So they try to trick you. When you see a sign that says, "Thank you for not doing something," you think that that's a rule that you can't do that. But if I was a smoker and I wanted to go over and lean on the sign that says, "Thank you for not smoking," and smoke, they can't do nothing about it because it's not illegal. They can just frown on you. You know, we don't appreciate that. Well, okay, glad for you. You know, because for the county and municipalities to ban smoking in parks and other public spaces would require action by the Tennessee General Assembly. And the funny part about this is that whenever they start passing all these rules, they want to include these new e-cigarettes. Now, there again, I have a friend that smokes those things, and I've read some about them. And pretty much, there's no nicotine involved in that. There's no tar. There's no nothing. In fact, when you exhale, there's no quote, quote, cigarette smoke coming out. So why would they ban those as well? Well, it's just the government being able to overreach and tell you what you can and cannot do. You're not a citizen. You're a subject because you're subjected to all of these crazy rules that the government comes up with. So we can't say that we're American citizens anymore in the land of the free. We're American subjects. I mean, because if it ever gets to the stage where smoking is forbidden in public areas, who's going to ensure the rights of those who do not want, well, for those that do want to smoke? They do have rights. What are you going to do about those? Once you start saying this group can't do something and that group can't do something, at some point, it's going to come back and you're going to start losing your rights. You know, like they said, when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for the Baptists, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Baptist. When they came for the Lutherans, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Lutheran. When they came for the Catholics, I didn't say anything because I was a Catholic. Then they came for me. There was nobody left. That's what it's coming down to, folks. Welcome to the America of the future. Say welcome to all of your American subjects. Thanks for listening to Cowboy Up with Tex. We'll be back tomorrow.